This is the midterm review for 1494. So we have to remember that computer hardware is the physical equipment of the computer. It's whatever you can pick up and throw. It's something that's solid, an actual thing like the case. But the software, that's the programs and the data that run the computer, okay? So any kind of program, any kind of information that you enter, that is going to be software. A picture element, a pixel, is one dot of light on the screen. The raster map is a grid filled with pixel dots to create the picture. So you can see on the right, you can see all the squares where the little dots have been enlarged. You can see the edges of the colored dots. Vector graphics uses mathematical formulas to describe the shapes in the file. So when you scale your fonts, they look sharp because it doesn't actually commit to the shape until you actually are outputting it. Raster graphics, your image is composed of the individual pixels on the two-dimensional grid, and when you scale it, it will anti-alias, and then you get this fuzzy edge. Anti-aliasing is when the computer senses two colors are far apart and it tries to get them closer together to make it look smoother. The aspect ratio is the proportion of the width to the height. So a 4:3 television set would be one of those old-time shapes, and then 16:9 is the more widescreen regular shape we have now. It's the width divided by the height, and that equals the aspect ratio. So 4 inches by 2 inches would be 2:1, or 2 divided by 1, or 2. 36 picas by 24 picas would be a 4:3, or 4 divided by 3 ratio. You have to use the same units, remember that. Now, the persistence of vision, this is the concept that your eye can see something as motion if you have these repeated images played at a certain speed and then sort of in a black space between them. And that is interpreted then as smooth motion. And that's the basis of movies and video and animation. And this is an example of a phantoscope, or phenakistoscope, but most people call them phantoscopes. Keyframe is a frame that shows an important change in the position or appearance of the objects. It's used as a guide for subsequent action, so anything that happens after it. You use it in your storyboards to tell your story. So whenever there's a significant change in the image, when something moves, when something is replaced by another image, then you want to have a keyframe. You use the keyframes in your storyboard because the storyboard is a visual outline of an animation movie using keyframes to describe the action. It contains notes about the dialogue, camera moves, and editing. In-betweens are the frames that will fill in the gradual changes between your keyframes that create the illusion of a smooth movement. So you can see there's the keyframes on the top, and then underneath I put in some in-between so you can see how it would smooth that movement out. A scene is an action unbroken by any change to another visual, or if you want to think of it in terms of like grammar, it would be like a sentence. And then a sequence is a series of scenes expressing a single theme, like a paragraph. So when you want to take your scenes, which are your comps in After Effects, and you want to put them into one main comp, you use sequence to put them in the order you want them and have them not overlaying each other. Now, rotoscoping is a method of tracing filmed or videotaped movements to create a natural motion in animation. It was invented by Max Fleischer in 1917. The Fleischers held that patent for both the machine, which Max invented, and for the technique of rotoscoping itself. And then rotoscoping has been updated now to where we use it to create the map that is used when you're overlaying one image over another in videos or in animation or movies. So we have the rotor brush tool, which is what we used to pull that greyhound out of the background. So once again, the explanation that it's a method of tracing filmed or videotaped movements, creating natural motion and animation. It was invented by Max Fleischer in 1917. Remember, he took a movie of his brother Dave, and Dave was wearing a clown suit, and that's where we get Coco the Clown in the Fleischer movies. And we did use that to trace the image sequence of the greyhound running from Edward Muybridge's sequential images. And remember, Edward Muybridge was the guy that had the running people and people running up and down stairs naked, but he also had animals. Then there are the 12 principles of animation as described by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, who had been animators for the Disney Studios back in the real classic animation days. So squash and stretch, or stretch and squash, that's another wording, same concept. This is where the forces of motion, momentum, and inertia make a shape flatten out at impact or stretch out into a shape following the direction of the motion as it is moving. The actual volume size doesn't change. If it stretches longer, it becomes skinnier. If it becomes flatter, it also gets fatter. This makes an object appear to be moving naturally. Okay, so you flatten the object to show that it has landed or hit something, and you stretch it out to show that it's moving quickly. Now in this example, we've got anticipation. When the character is about to make a move, he begins to collect energy, like when a runner is about to start a race and he pulls back, or a cat crouches down just before it leaps. And in this example here, this purple string that is running along the bottom, that one is anticipating its motion and then running forward. The ball is stretching and then squashing, and then it goes and hits the wall and explodes. Now staging is when you compose your stage to draw attention to important details, and you want to use placement, lighting, color, and gestalt, or any other principle of design and composition to arrange your space so that the eye is drawn to the correct location where the action is about to occur, or where something important is located. So you have to make sure that you pay attention to the way that you lay out your space, because that's going to determine how people read your message. This is another one of the animation concepts that we did in class. We had the additive, subtractive, and manual transform, where we took the A, the B, and the C. So additive, drawing it and duplicating the frame, then adding to the image and duplicating the frame over and over until you have the entire A. So you started with just a little tiny dot or a line, and you ended up with an entire A. Then subtractive, when you actually do the same things backwards, where you have the whole thing drawn and then erase each frame and duplicate each frame until you've got nothing there. Or you can just do additive and reverse the animation to have the same effect. Then manual transform is when you take the image as a solid, complete image, but you change it by transforming it, by stretching it, by rotating it, by changing the proportions, anything that you do to it to make it look different over time. And so those are your straight ahead, additive, subtractive, and manual transform. Straight ahead because you go from frame to frame and you don't go back. Then there's the pose to pose, which is another type of straight ahead. This is where you calculate the time of the move, so you know how long it's going to take. How long does it last? Where does it start? Where does it end? And then you can figure out how many frames you need, because you know what frames per second you're using. And then you draw the beginning of the move, the middle of the move, and the ending of the move, maybe a couple of positions in the middle, and then you start to use the semi-transparent overlays or onion skinning so you can draw the in-betweens, so you can locate the space where that image is going to be, and then you end up with a nice completed move. Then there's some more principles of animation. They get very complicated here. We've got follow through and overlapping, the motion of the character or object shown as layers of fluid motion, which occur at the same time, but with slightly different timing and placement, like swinging arms while the legs are walking, not the exact same motion, but during the same sequence. When the main image stops moving, the parts may continue and then return, like the hair on the head of a character as he stops running. Then you've got slow in and slow out, which is also called ease in and ease out. And ease in and ease out, the beginning of the move will start slow and then gradually come to stop. And when the car stops, it will take a few seconds to get up to speed. At the end of the move, the brakes take a moment to slow down and then stop the car. Now, in After Effects, you ease into the station, so you start out fast and then slow down to ease in. And then in After Effects, you ease out from the station, so you start out slow and then speed up. So you're like a train. Okay? This is not necessarily true of other programs or when people are talking about other instances of ease in, ease out, slow in, slow out. So just remember, when you're working with After Effects, you ease into the train station, you ease out from the train station. It's the only way you can remember how it works. Now, arcs, when you're talking about motion, people don't move in a straight line. Animals don't move in a straight line. They kind of bounce when they're walking. And whenever you do something, you tend to use a curved path. Things that move tend to use a curved path, partly because of gravity, partly because it's just more efficient. So remember, when you are doing any kind of animation, that you don't want to go with just straight line moves that stop and move perpendicular. You want to have curved paths or it doesn't look natural. Secondary action. Your eyes may blink, your feet may tap, and living creatures move their bodies in different directions all at once, and the simultaneous actions make it look more realistic. Okay? So remember that nothing just moves like I'm going to move by walking forward, but my arms don't move, my head doesn't move, my eyes don't move. No, that's not how it works. Everything sort of moves together, life goes on, you've got all kinds of simultaneous things and secondary actions happening. In timing, the real world has realistic timing and things can only happen at a certain speed. So to make your animations more realistic, use your timeline, organize your motions, make it seem believable. Remember, you can always move those keyframes closer together or further apart, and you can change the keyframes to be ease in or ease out keyframes, and that will make your animations look more realistic. In exaggeration, a lot of animations use exaggeration, and that helps, especially when they're supposed to be funny. So if you look at some Warner Brothers, like Bugs Bunny animations, if you look at Tex Avery animations, you will see an exaggeration of motion, of maybe things get bigger and smaller, faces become extremely distorted because it's funnier. Solid drawing. It's always important to remember that everything in animation, everything in any kind of creative discipline relies a great deal on your artistry. You have to be a good artist to be a good animator. You have to be a good artist to be a good filmmaker. You have to understand how things look and what they mean and how they affect people, and that's all part of good drawing. So solid drawing is very important. And then appeal means giving your drawings character, personality, the appearance of emotional depth. So it doesn't have to be cute like this little guy, but you want your characters to look like they really have feelings and that they really have emotional depth. So you gotta look for those little bits of information that you see in someone's face. Filmmaking shots. This is all composing the frame. This is all part of staging. You want to make sure that you use the correct type of shot to give the information that you need people to get. So you have establishing shots, which are basically extremely far away, long shots, and extreme long shots, so that you can let people know where something's about to happen, the setting of the action. Medium shots are closer in, they're more intimate. It allows people to hear the dialogue, so you can have people having a conversation, you could have people, say, at a cocktail party, you can have people who are together, like here I've got people swimming. Just basically, you want to have enough information and enough sort of action going on and give people this understanding of the exact thing that's happening at this point, understanding the characters, seeing the faces. Then close-up shots are very close. And this will show a lot of detail of action and facial expression. That helps people get the emotional reactions from the characters, even more so than medium shots. A close-up shot can be used especially in some type of setting where it's supposed to be suspenseful or frightening, or there's something that's very emotional happening. You want to have a close-up shot to get that character reaction. So here's a very detailed list. You've got the establishing shots are the extreme long shot, the long shot, and this is two different types of information shots where you get to see the setting. Full shot and medium shot. Full shot shows the full length of the figure, including their feet and head. A medium shot shows people from the waist or knees up. So these are both really good for sort of scenes showing people in dialogue or interacting between each other. Close-up shots are when you want to get the emotional reaction of the character, to have a dialogue so that people can really get into the dialogue and the interaction between the characters. Extreme close-ups when you want to have just basically one person just really close, so get some really, really heightened tension, get you to see a person's reactions to something so that that particular character begins to have a real connection with the viewer. Also can use it to show details of the surroundings, like a doorknob or a clock face. It might give information about what's happening during that scene. And then a single shot is one character, a medium shot and close-up usually, and then two shot is two characters in one frame, usually having a conversation. So those are your filmmaking shots. Okay, tools and keyboard shortcut keys. The selection tool, your shortcut is V. Just press a V and it's the pointer arrow. And then the puppet pin tool, Command plus P, so just Command P, and it looks like a push pin. The pan behind tool, you press Y, and then you get this box with a diamond in another box. And this is what you use to move the rotation point or the transformation point when you want to make sure that the center of the image or the layer is where you want it to be. So you can rotate around a particular area, or you can have something transform from one particular point. The rotation tool is what you use when you want to rotate something actually in the middle of the comp window. And other than using the numbers under the rotation transformation in the layer, you would use the rotation tool W. The type tool And once again, that's T, always T, and you use the T to enter type right in the middle of the comp, or you can enter it anywhere you want to by clicking on the comp window. And remember that when you have type that's been entered in After Effects, you can apply any of the type presets, animations to it, or type effects. If you wanted to use type from Photoshop, you have to make sure that you convert it to editable type before you can do anything to it.